The beeswax taper exhales, a slow, steady stream of smoke curling like a whispered apology as the needle in my palm draws breath. It pulls the scent first, camphor sharp enough to pierce the back of the throat, and then the softer, honeyed residue of last night's rosemary burnt herbs, now muted beneath today's damp wood smoke, and a faint, metallic tang like ozone after lightning, but slower, deeper, the breath of time itself, so Terrier calls it. My thumb presses once against the brass needle, embedded just below the knuckle, where the skin has grown over it, smooth and warm as river stone. It hums, low and steady, a counterpoint to the candle's flicker, which pulses in kind. The flame dims with my inhale, swells on the exhale, so that when I breathe out now, long and full, the light brightens just enough to catch the dust motes hanging above the ritual table and make them spin like scattered seed. I am already seated, not rising. The parchment before me bears my own hand. Please release me. Beneath it, in a neater, steadier script, the older, wiser one, let go. I do not remember writing that second line yet. It lies there like an echo returned too soon, ink still faintly tacky beneath my fingertip. Across the table, she breathes. She sits as I have become accustomed to seeing her in my reverie, posture straight but never rigid, shoulders relaxed, though the muscles beneath them hold memory of heavy lifting. Her hair, my hair, though silvered at the temples, like tarnished silver thread, is drawn back from a deep parting that bisects her skull as neatly as a compass line. Her hands rest upon the parchment's edge, fingers loosely interlaced, the right thumb tracing the crescent-shaped nick where I once pricked my own thumb to seal the first invocation. Her eyes are closed. Not asleep. No, sleep is too simple, but attuned, like a tuning fork struck and allowed to settle into its true vibration. I watch her chest rise, then fall, then rise again, and on that third inhale I feel it, not in the air, not in my bones, but between them, the shift. It arrives not as wind, but as weight pressing between breath. A pressure, a pause. I let go of the parchment and lift my hands to the candle. Its flame has begun to lean, not toward me, nor away, but steadily into her, though there is no draft, no open window, no hearth fire's pull. I extend my palms beneath its glow, and watch how the light pulls in the grooves of my knuckles, how the needle at my left wrist catches firelight and throws it back in brief, right pulses. She exhales now. Her lips part, not wide, not urgent, but with the quiet certainty of one who has already rehearsed this moment 100 times before waking. I am all patience, she says, and I realize this is when I first say those words. Not tomorrow, as in most loops, but now. In this first breath, after crossing the threshold, her voice does not carry. It does not echo. It simply is, like a stone dropped into water that has already settled. I do not answer, do not yet know to answer, but instead lift my gaze past her and into the space just behind her left shoulder, where the air shimmers faintly, as though lit from within by something unseen. I have learned to read that shimmer as signal. Here, it means. This is where I wait. She opens her eyes. They are the same brown as mine, darker at the pupil and lightening toward amber at the limbus, but there is a stillness about them, an absence of urgency that would once have seemed like distance. It is not coldness, not indifference, just the deep calm of one who has already crossed the threshold twice and knows each crossing leaves its mark. You're early, she says, voice soft but unhurried. I do not correct her, not yet, though I am aware I entered only moments ago, stepping through the indigo-bound curtain and down the 3 smooth steps into this lower chamber, the door fissure humming beneath my palm like a tuning fork, struck just once. But I say nothing, let the moment settle, let her speak first. Her fingers shift upon the parchment. She traces, please, release me once, slowly, and then moves to the second phrase. Her fingertip hovers over, let go, and for the longest moment she does not press down or underline it. She simply holds it. The needle, she says at last, is drawn to pulse points. My breath catches, not in surprise but in recognition. I have noticed this too, how the needle thrums strongest when my wrist rests near my throat, or when my feet are bare upon cool stone, or when her voice, hers, the spirit's, my future self's, finds my ear. I nod, though she does not demand it of me. She nods instead, for both our sake. You have the spool ready? I do. She smiles, not broadly, but with the depth of a smile that has traveled miles in silence before finding its recipient. The thread ritual begins now, always begins at dusk, I say. Then I thought perhaps this evening would be different. Her fingers brush her wrist, the same spot where she rests her thumb, and for just an instant and the air shivers again, as though memory itself has stepped forward and whispered into my ear. It is different. She draws a breath, deeper still, my own breath, matching it before I realize I am drawing it in concert. My shoulders relax, unbidden. My spine straightens, not from will but from invitation. We are not summoning a spirit, she says. Not to let the words sing, but because they have already settled deep within the chamber's bones. It is we who are summoned. I turn my hands over in my lap, palms upturned, and let them rest upon the cool surface of my knees. The needle at my wrist thrums once more. It does not hum its own tune so much as echo hers. She stands then, not rising with flourish, but drawing herself up with quiet gravity, as though standing for a long overdue audience before the unseen court of memory. The first time I did this, she says, I called upon you as though calling upon the moon, steady, expectant, inevitable. I wove your name into my invocations like a vow. Come to me. And you did? She crosses to the east wall where the taper burns low in its brass holder. The candle's light catches her profile, the curve of her jaw, the slight dip beneath her lower lip where she habitually presses it when deep in thought. And I see, suddenly, how many times I have seen that profile before, in sketches, in half-finished drawings pinned to my work-table folded letter tucked beneath my pillow, on nights too restless for sleep. But you did not come because I called you. She turns now, just enough for her gaze to meet mine full on, not through space or distance, but through time. You came because you had already decided to. My throat tightens, though I do not know quite why. Not yet. The first invitation was sent in error, she says. The wrong one? She smiles again, this time with a touch of sorrow, of tenderness, but no reproach. No, Dot. The right one, for me, for us. She reaches into the pocket of her waistcoat and draws out a small leather pouch. From it, she lifts a single dried iris petal, its deep violet tip bleached nearly white at the stem. I recognize this flower, Iris germanica, Soteria notes in her ledger, known for bridging earth and sky, death and dream. I tucked this beneath the inkwell before I left for my own ritual, she says. She places it gently upon the table between us. See how the veins are split, how each split line echoes a hesitation. I pick up the petal. Its surface is soft as worn paper, fragile enough to tear with the weight of memory alone. My thumb finds one such split near the stem, exactly where I remember pausing during my very first seance, just before I whispered, "Please, release me," though it was not a plea but a command. You hesitated there, she says. I still do. Then you must learn to hesitate differently. She moves back toward her seat, her steps measured. She does not rush. She chooses her pace, as though each footfall must land precisely where intention and timing converge. The candle beside her dims again, not fully, but enough. for the shadow of her form to stretch across the rug, past the obsidian disc resting near the hearthstone, toward the thread spool, now exposed at the edge of the table. She glances at it. "The needle," she says again. "It is more than a tether." Her fingers drift over its cool shaft where the brass has warmed to her touch. Then, slowly, deliberately, she turns her palm upward, shows me the crescent-shaped scar on her left wrist, the same one I made, the same one that still bleeds faint opalescence, and even after all these loops. "It was my habit," she says, voice low now, almost reverent, "to press this spot when calling you home." She takes the needle from my palm, not gently, not with reverence only, but with purpose. I do not resist. I have learned to yield at precisely this moment, when breath is caught between inhale and exhale. Soteria calls it the thinning, a momentary softening of the boundary between what is spoken and what is felt, what is chosen and what is already written in bone. She presses the needle's tip into her own wrist, into the very scar, and as she does, I feel the familiar tremor pass through me. Not pain, but resonance, as though my body knows this insertion better than my mind has yet learned to name. It slips in cleanly, smoothly. A bead of blood rises, not red, not even deep pink, but opalescent, caught between silver and rose gold. I watch it swell, glisten, then fall. She does not wipe it away. She lets it drip onto the obsidian disc. The moment it strikes the surface, a perfect circle no larger than my thumbnail, it leaves behind a ringed imprint, mirroring precisely the concentric circles etched into the stone's face. I feel a hum rise from the disc, low, resonant, and it passes up my arm, settles in my chest. "It has already begun healing," she says. "I know." She looks at me then, not as though meeting a stranger, but as one who greets an old friend after many absences, each one bearing more weight than the last. "You know more than you let yourself believe," she says. "The first time I summoned you," she continues, "I believed love was mastery. That calling your name with devotion, with precision, that it made me worthy of your return." She smiles, this time gently, and her voice drops into a cadence that is part prayer, part incantation. But love is not command, not even gentle command. It is request. Her fingers brush the needle shaft again. "Let go," she whispers, not to me alone, but to something behind and beyond, some unseen chorus already humming along. I do not speak. I watch her hands return to the parchment. She traces, "Please, release me once more." It slides on, downward, toward me. Then, "Let go." She exhales. Her breath catches, not on the word go, but just after, as though she is releasing not only me, but the very notion that I might choose. "Your love," she says, voice steady now, "was not premature." I lift my gaze to hers, expecting sorrow, or weariness at least, but she meets my look with something like relief. Premature would have been not to summon at all. Her breath steadies. Candle brightens. Even the dust motes seem to lean toward her, as though listening. I failed you first," she says. Her words do not ring as sorrow. They ring as truth. "I summoned myself into your hands, into your prayers, before I had learned how to receive." She glances again at the needle in her wrist and still embedded, its tip glowing faintly now, not hot, but warm, like a coal banked beneath embers. The thread ritual is not about binding. It is about unbinding. Her fingers find mine now, gentle, sure, and guide them both to rest upon the needle between us. My younger self's hand atop hers, the one that has already known failure and still reaches forward without flinching. "The spirit who answers you." She glances toward the shimmering space behind her shoulder. "That is not your lover. No," I say, finally speak, though I do not know how long I have waited to utter that word. It is me. Her smile widens, not broad, but deepening, like water receding to reveal hidden contours of earth. Me, and my mother, and her before her, and all the versions of myself who stood where you now sit, hands trembling, eyes bright with love and conviction, and called upon a lover only to find it is themselves they have been summoning all along. She draws a breath deep and exhales fully, slowly, and in that release, in that exhalation that settles not as sound but as arrival, she speaks the words already etched into her own flesh. I am all patience. The phrase hangs, not fading, not echoing outward, but folding inward, collapsing previous loops like pages pressed flat beneath a weight. And I realize I have just heard my younger self say these words for the first time, and yet in this voice, older, quieter, infinitely weary and kind, has already spoken them back to me hundreds of times before. Candle flares, then dims, not once, but in 3 pulses, as though marking the rhythm of what is lost and what remains. She rises. I rise with her, not as follower, not as student, as one who has waited not for instruction but for recognition. Her steps carry her toward the window, its glass warped with age, catching the dusk light in soft, watery pools, and I follow, not rushing to catch up, but walking beside her, aware that each footfall now echoes back upon itself, backward and forward at once. She does not turn as she passes through the indigo curtain, but she pauses at its edge, hands resting on either side of the doorway, and speaks without looking back. Do not fear the gaps between breaths. I have learned, I say, my voice finding her tone now, steady, unhurried, to dwell there, but to something both older and newer than us. The next time you summon, she says, you will know the difference between calling to and calling from. She steps forward into the garden beyond, the twilight softening her edges, and just before she disappears fully, just before her silhouette dissolves like smoke drawn upward, I turn back to find my younger self still seated at the table. But she is no longer alone. A figure sits beside her, not across but close, a shape wrapped in coat woven of countless threads, and silver and gray and faintly iridescent where light catches it. His face remains indistinct, not hidden by shadow or fabric, but by presence itself, its posture familiar, its hands folded just so upon the parchment's edge. And though this figure has not yet spoken, though no invocation has left its lips, I know it knows me better than I know myself. The candle flickers once more, and the dust motes align, not randomly, not as before, but in precise, symmetrical glyphs, each one mirroring the last, each one telling a story already lived and half forgotten. She breathes in sync with them, her needle pulses, and her lips move, soundlessly at first, repeating the same phrase over and over. Please release me. Let go. I am all patience.